things cranking. Usually it's about 4 or 5 minutes. And today, our in-studio co-host is Dan Stupp. He's the founder of MMA Junkie. Dan, technically, are you the founder or co-founder? Like, do we still give love to Eric and Tom?
Yeah, co-founder.
Did they just fade off?
No, they were definitely co-founders.
Yeah, okay. Well, Dan's a co-founder, except he did a lot of the work. He didn't take a day off because he basically put the stuff on the webpage. You know, all the content you read for many years until John Morgan came along. So that's him. He's the MMA Junkie. He did have two founding partners, except they were more behind the scenes, and they're no longer really involved in MMA at all, right?
Yeah, since 2011 when we sold to USA Today.
Yeah, and he's in town for some business, and he'll co-host today and tomorrow, so it'll be a ton of fun. Follow him on Twitter at Dan Stupp. 2 N's in Dan. Why was that? Mom, Dad, who came up with that idea?
It's a long story. It was after a former Reds backup catcher because we had 2 Dans in my class of 8 kids, and the teacher wouldn't let us have the same name. So she was going to make one of us go by Danny, and then I remember Dan Belladero, former Reds backup catcher. I was like, well, I'll go with Dan with 2 N's, and this was like 2nd grade.
So you're Daniel Stupp on your birth certificate?
Yeah, with 1 N.
With 1 N?
Yeah, it's so stupid.
Oh, it's interesting. Okay. But, so, yeah, once you're a Daniel, you can change the Dan to whatever you want at that point, right? Like, what does your license say? Daniel?
Yeah. I mean, all official stuff says Daniel, but if it's informal or preferred, it's always Dan with 2 N's.
So I could be George with 2 R's. Because I can call myself whatever I want, but my birth certificate has to be what it is.
It's like my friend Jill, she has 1 L in Jill, and my sister's husband is Bill with 1 L. So
that kind of bothers me.
Yeah.
I like the 2 L's on Jill and Bill. The 2 N's on Dan that looks more unique.
Yeah.
As opposed to awkward or whatever.
You could put like a silent H in George, like GH.
Like Jenny Andrade?
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Right?
Do you get hit up with, are you George or Jorge?
No, I don't get that. I think I'm more of an Americanized Latino. I really don't get too much of those, where someone goes, there's 6 of us there, like you said the other day, and somebody goes, breakfast burrito, and they look at me.
I get it.
I don't get too much
Today,
of that.
just this morning, walking in, I got, thanks, amigo, holding up a door.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get too many of those. Maybe when I'm in goatee mode, I do more, but you get a lot of that, right?
I do. Yeah.
I was walking behind you guys through Mandalay Bay, and this guy was like, check out those bad hombres over there.
Nasty girl.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Brian Goes' real name. I don't know if Victoria knows that, but this guy's been brawling just to get his name right within our own family. A lot of people send him Christmas cards. Brian with a Y.
Brain.
A few.
Brain.
I got Ryan one time from.
He's got
Carlos'
Brandon.
son.
From your family?
He's got Brandon.
Ryan.
Like, we have a lot. We have so much family that there's some you haven't seen in 20 years. And then the family will come along and go, you remember Georgie? Because that's what they used to call me when they met me years ago. And then they'll go, and this is Brandon? And then I think maybe they realize it, but he's been Brian and Brandon and Brian with a Y. And I have a really good story with Brain, by the way. Excuse me?
Hardly anybody knows me as Goes growing up.
Oh, okay.
Just all because of this show. Because I didn't want people to know my real name.
Yeah.
When we first started working with you
10
guys,
seconds.
I had put his phone number in my phone under his real name. It took me forever to find it because I couldn't remember his real name was Brian.
All right, here we go.
Here we go.
This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMA Junkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is gonna be a little bit bumpy.
Hi, Junkie Nation, with Gorgeous George and Goes. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yes!
The MMA Junkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communications stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
with the use of MMA Junkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMA Junkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMA Junkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes, our ace co-host, handling all the producing duties back east. It's Victoria. Sitting to my right, co-founder of MMA Junkie, Dan Stupp. Sup, stand up. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Good to have you here in studio, and you'll be with us for a couple days.
I sure will.
Yeah. So Dan was over the LA offices, and then today he's got some business to attend to, and he said, "Clear it. I'm co-hosting. I'm in." And I love it. You know how those days goes when we have the co-hosts. I think they're just a notch better than just us two Muppets.
Yeah, they're
hanging
a lot more
out.
fun, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Different opinions. You and I kind of have the same opinions because we live together.
Yeah. And it's always fun to have I'm really starting to like Victoria and Sam. At first I was like, oh, man, what happened to Danny? Mm-hmm. But these two are cool. Really, we got dealt a hand where Victoria's on Mondays and Sam's on Tuesdays. But I really enjoyed both of them.
I even upgraded Victoria this morning.
Did you?
Today's her 5th show, George.
Is it?
Yeah, so now she has her own theme music.
Okay.
That she has to play before she can even speak to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I play my theme music, and then that's how our day starts off.
Very cool.
Sam gets his tomorrow.
Also want to say, today is Stungun Monday, so have your stories ready. Something pissed you off this past weekend. We are in a society where we don't confront people with guns and knives, but I'll tell you what, you hold that frustration for a few days, you can stun gun them on the MMA Junkie Radio Show, and I have one or two I can share. I think the panel has a couple as well, so we'll do that. And we do get, it's MMA Junkie. We're going to talk MMA. There's a CES show this weekend, 42, I think. Bellator 175. Even Cage Warriors are good friends. They're doing their thing out there with Paddy Pimblett at the top of the bill, one of my favorite fighters to talk to. But we can't stray away from the big sports news because we're sports guys, and we're at the Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, so we see it all day. But congratulations to North Carolina, Oregon, South Carolina, and Gonzaga. Those are your final 4 teams for the NCAA 2017 March Madness tournament. Well, North Carolina is pretty much good for a Final Four at least every 3rd year, so not too much of a shock there. Gonzaga has been ranked high before, but I think they're really looking like they can take down the tournament. But the other two, yes, for sure. Mm-hmm. Oregon and the University of South Carolina, I mean, there's not too many people that had them in their Final Fours.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Dan, you said you're pretty much out of any Final Four or any March Madness pool you're in?
I had Arizona and Kentucky, so, yeah.
I have North Carolina, but the people that have North Carolina ahead of me, just basically I can't catch them. So my ship has sailed as well, even though North Carolina won. I only had one chance, and that's if Kansas would have beaten Oregon. I would have had a good chance to win it, but they didn't, so that's that.
I thought Kansas and I thought Arizona would shine a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, it's a different field, man.
Yeah. All right, so you're more than welcome to chime in on any of these topics at 866-522-2846. Tito Ortiz will be a guest of ours as well, the former UFC light heavyweight champ, also a Hall of Famer there, and a recent recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award at the World MMA Awards. He will join us, and I want to pick his brain about a couple fights that are upcoming that he's touched in a way or another, one of them being the recently announced Bellator 180 card, the pay-per-view out in New York City at Madison Square Garden, to be exact, coming up here this summer. He's actually fought both headliners, Chael Sonnen, Vanderlei Silva. So I want to get his thoughts there because I think he cares a lot.
It's been a while since Vanderlei, though.
Oh, right? It sure has, for sure. But I can tell he cares a lot about Bellator, which is the company he finished up with. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure he'll have some thoughts there. Quentin Rampage Jackson was part of the original Team Punishment. So that was more of a teammate. And King Mo, and Tito tripped at each other when King Mo wanted to fight Tito, but Tito didn't feel like King Mo was a big enough name. But they basically are fighting around that weight of where Tito, did a lot of his work over his 20 years. Cyborg too. I want to see where he sits with Cyborg. I know he had to like do one of those technicality pullaways where because Dana White had said what was hurting Cyborg was maybe her affiliation with Tito. Remember he pulled away like about a year ago or so? But I don't know if that was just kind of like for the general public to know, but there's still a contract that binds them or where, because he was advising her to take that fight in Brooklyn.
I have to imagine she still leans on him for advice, even if that is the case.
She used to train at his gym. So I also saw a headline that said, there was a possible falling out. So wanted to get some clarification on that because that thing's starting to heat up. Cyborg this past weekend relinquished her belt at Invicta. And so she wants D-Ran Dami, and she wants her at UFC 214 in Anaheim, California on July 29th. So we'll get his thoughts on that, and, of course, just what that award meant to him, the Lifetime Achievement Award that he got through the World MMA Awards about 3 weeks ago here in Las Vegas. So we'll talk to him. That one, again, is 2:45 p.m. Eastern, 11:45 a.m. Pacific. So we have a wide-open show for you all to call in, and we can talk about the many topics that are out there, including Rampage Jackson saying, paraphrasing here, but he almost wishes he hadn't started MMA. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Is that just an angle that hasn't been covered? Maybe he's so sick and tired of talking about King Mo and other things that maybe he just kind of threw that little curveball at us?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because people look at just the MMA career, but if you take that away, that probably means that the A-team goes away, some of the acting.
Right.
So I'm not so sure it's something that it might have just been a spur-of-the-moment comment. I'm not so sure that it's something that he truly feels, but he'll be on the show.
That's the first thing I thought about it was the A-team. Another thing, Quentin was going to be on today's show, but I think he's been rerouted to the middle of the week, so we'll ask him about that. But I saw that, and I thought, are you sure a lot of money came with that? Mm-hmm. The opportunity to provide for your children came. World travel, and, knocking people out legally instead of on the mean streets of Memphis, Tennessee, and getting paid to do that. So
Mike Powell probably would have been okay with it, right? His description of fighting Rampage is still one of the best. He said he felt like a shoe in a dryer.
He did.
Just getting thrown around.
Yeah. All those whips he has, all those cars he has kind of like a mini collection there. But what he said was he felt like he lost touch with a lot of his family back in Memphis. Well, guess what? That's a 3-hour flight. That might be a little bit more on him. I don't know. What do you think of his comments?
I don't listen to anything that guy says anymore. I mean, he'll say the exact opposite thing tomorrow and then call you a liar for saying he ever said it the first time. So it's hard to take anything he says seriously.
Yeah. Well, him and King Mo, man, they'll settle things on Friday. King Mo feels like he won the fight. If you go to MMAdecisions.com, you'll see that a lot of people agree with him. A lot of the media agree with him. A lot of fans scored it for him. But the two people that mattered didn't, and that's the two that gave it to Quentin that basically outvoted the one that did for King Mo. And so I know King Mo wants this one back. But if you watch King Mo, he has this attitude that I think is irritating Quentin, because rather than act as a fighter that needs to go and make it 1-1, King Mo almost feels like he's up 1-0, and on Friday he's going to make it 2-0. Mm-hmm. And I think that's irritating Quentin a little. They've been going back and forth. Quentin's fat. King Mo has nipple rings, I think. Kind of like the old stuff. They brought that back a little bit, but in the end, it does get a little heated between them, and then they kind of laugh it off, so I can't tell how much of their heat is fabricated.
The first fight, I remember when the decision was being read, and people were probably going to go, well, yeah, you guys are a little bit of King Mo homers, and I get that. I felt like King Mo won. But I also felt like this could go either way. Mm-hmm. The judging it wasn't like a landslide by any means. It was a close fight.
It was a close fight. And King Mo's dropped a few of those big fights. He dropped the Phil Davis fight. He dropped the Rampage Jackson fight. So there's been a few out there that really could put him into an all-time great type of status. Not on the level of Anderson Silva or GSP, but just having some wins. Like even when he got knocked out by Fei Zhao, that was a good fight that was going his way, but then he got knocked out. Emmanuel Newton, he kind of couldn't clear that hurdle, but he really could have left a pretty good legacy by winning like at least 2 of those 4 along the way. And to be a Strikeforce champ and a Bellator champ, and then to still do what he did. Prior to losing to Crow Cop, the guy was like 8-0 as a heavyweight or 10-0 as a heavyweight. we had to take a good look at almost ranking the guy. And then he dominated round 1 of Cro Cop and then got clipped. But still,
and it's not like
it's
not like he's packing on the pounds to go up there. I mean, he's a light heavyweight fighting heavyweights.
Yeah, he says when he's in camp, there's times when he's walking around at 203, 204. So there's not even a make light heavyweight weight class. Sometimes when he is fighting a heavyweight and he knows he has to keep a few more pounds on, he says he gets to 212 or 215. And, of course, this is a guy that shared on the show with us recently that he was inspired a little bit by what Rashad Evans is doing, a good friend of his, and he wants to do 185 before he retires.
I think he'd be successful at it.
This past weekend, we also had Invicta FC 22 Evinger versus Kunitskaya 2. Tanya Evinger defeated Yana Kunitskaya for the bantamweight title. And, I think this was already talked about on our website. But UFC, what are you waiting for, honestly? Like, this is a tough girl who can fight and I think could help replenish that emptying cupboard of 135ers. Holm will probably return, but Durandamy has to fight at 45, I believe, for a while. Tate left. Ronda left. So, if you're looking for a quality 35er, I mean, that's it.
That's your girl. You need to spruce up that division. I mean, it took some pretty big hits, and you have a girl at the top of the division right now. It's showing almost no weakness.
Livia Souza, their strawweight champion, she defeated Ayaka Hamasaki in a non-title strawweight bout. Now, here's the thing that kind of hit that card hard was there was some ladies that didn't make weight, 3 of them. And did you guys hear about the Muay Thai fighter that died because of weight cutting?
No.
So do you remember when we talked about Dominique Robinson? He was announcing Mike Swick's event. That event was an outdoor event, and a lot of the fighters were slipping because there was rain, but there was a lot of humidity. So you could see Swick and Dominique, they were perspiring a lot, and they were talking about it. Well, I don't know if it was for that show or another show, but a fighter who was cutting weight in Thailand, who's a well-known Muay Thai fighter, I just thought about it right now. I should have saved the thread. I was reading about it yesterday. He died, man. And I don't know what we're waiting for, but weight cutting is a serious issue.
No, and it's I hate to sound morbid, but I mean, plenty of other people have said it, and they're right. I mean, it's only a matter of time in the UFC because they're still pushing it way too close. I mean, we're not safer because guys are dropping out on the day of the fight. That means it's still an ongoing problem, and eventually someone's going to sneak through, or they're not going to realize how bad off they are. And yeah, they need to get a hold of it. And I know it's easier said than done. Everyone's always going to be looking to cheat. You make more weight classes, it just means more people, more weight classes that people are going to try to get down too light for because they think, I mean, if one other guy is kind of gaming the system and doing a drastic cut, every other one of them has to. And there's really no easy way to fix that. You talk about same-day weigh-ins and stuff like that. It compounds the problem. It makes it worse. So I don't know how they're going to fix it. I mean, no promoter, no regulator, no coach. It's going to have to come from the fighters themselves. And I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you get thousands of guys to mutually agree that, hey, this is really stupid and it'd be in all of our best interest if everybody quits trying to cut drastic weight. But all it takes is one guy doing it. Now everyone else is like, well, I've got to do it too. So it's a very dangerous, very tough problem, and there's no easy solution. And we don't seem to be getting any closer to getting to one. So
if they could adopt a little bit of the pride mentality where the loss doesn't hurt you as much as long as you perform well.
Right.
Because you're facing another badass, right, when you're in there in the UFC. That's one thing. And two, that win bonus. There's conservative fights because of the win bonus. And I think a lot of fighters want to be as big as possible because of the fear of getting cut, and they want to win their win bonus. So maybe if it could be more like boxing where you're basically any fees you're getting paid for that fight, it's all up front.
I think the biggest motivator in professional sports is money.
Right.
So I would just say keep raising that bar. Whatever percentage you got to give away, raise it up until that number starts to go down on people trying to attempt to make these weight classes.
Wait, explain
for
that
them
further.
To say. So in other words, instead of giving your opponent 25% or whatever, now it's 50.
Oh,
you see what I'm saying?
yeah.
That number has to get to a certain point where fighters go, I'm not even gonna attempt to do this because I don't want to risk having to give up all that money.
Yeah, but if I'm the fighter and I'm trying to do a stupid weight cut and I waited too long to get it done, and I'm like, okay, now I need to cut this weight or I'm losing 50% of my fight purse. I'm going to try it even harder and be more dangerous about it because now I'm going to lose 50% if I don't make
that'd
it.
be crazy.
And, or, it could be a catch weight fight, if the opponent would agree to maybe giving you 2 or 3 pounds. But you start putting in those big fights and the fighter's going to be like, no, either make the weight or I want 50% of your purse. So it's going to be even harder to negotiate catch weight fights that would be safer. So again, I mean, for every seeming solution, there's another problem, right around the corner. So,
what if I guess it would take a long time, but I think what the UFC can do, along with working with USADA, is have that be a part of the protocol of when you're being tested for urine and blood, we're also going to weigh you. And what we want to do is randomly take your weight, your walk-around weight, and then say, according to that, this is where we feel like you should be fighting. Take it or leave it, or you're not a part of the UFC. Granted, again, that's going to be – because, see, that's the game where you really don't know they're coming. Like, if you knew, USADA comes on the 27th of every month, then it would be, the weight cuts on the 26th just to make weight. But if you're just randomly being weighed, at some point I think we're going to be able to gather enough information, and they're already out there doing it, and they're paying – I think the USADA plan is like $6 million a year. So at that point, you're getting caught randomly. You're being weighed, and you're basically giving the UFC that information I think is vital.
I think you're still running into the problem, though. People are always going to try to game the system. And, again, I think the weight cutting stuff, like, it has to come from within the fighter ranks. And I don't know. Like, I think it would make sense for some things for, like, either the UFC or the Association of Boxing Commissions, like some group to put together like a fighter council or a fighter relations whatever, where it's like a group of, like, take like a Forrest Griffin, like say you have 5 or 10 retired guys who have been through the ringer, they've seen it all, they don't necessarily have to be ex-champs or something, but guys who have been around the sport, they understand it. Like, if a guy is making really drastic weight cuts, like, I think it would be on that council to kind of pull the guy aside and talk to him as fellow fighters and being like, look, not only what you're doing is dangerous to you, it's encouraging other people to do the same thing. Like, I think you need fighters stepping in, because no fighter is going to listen to a promoter or regulator or anybody telling them like, hey, that's really unsafe, you need to stop doing that. It's always us versus them. But I think if another fighter pulls you aside, especially if it's a guy you respect, some of that, a Randy Couture or guys who didn't have a lot of beefs during their careers and things like that, guys who understand the sport a little better. And I think Forrest Griffin's a good one. He's kind of he's a very friendly guy. He's easy to talk to. You listen to him. He obviously knows what he's talking about. But I think if it comes from him as opposed to someone saying either do this or we're going to fine you, do this, we're going to cut you, if it's a fellow fighter really talking to you just because they're concerned about your health and everything, I think it's a lot more powerful. I think it's a lot more impactful. But
it's so difficult when the promoter themselves are kind of dangling that carrot, right? How many times have you seen, hey, take this fight, short notice, we'll give you some more cash, that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where some of these problems arise, right? Where you get a guy that's used to his 8-week camp and cutting that weight professionally the way that we all want him to. Now he's trying to do it and slip it in 4 weeks or 5 weeks. So at the same time, you got the promoter that's dangling the carrot. It's rough.
But one more time, guys. I'm going to be a little stubborn on this. I thought my idea was close to brilliant.
USADA?
Yeah.
But see,
because you're catching
guys
them
at random times. Though,
that's
like
the time.
The holidays. That's
the time. So there's no gaming in the system gets thrown out the window, right? You're right. One time may have been in the holidays, but I've been watching USADA, and a lot of these guys are up to like 14 a year, 7 a year. I think the average amount of tests by dividing by the roster, they're each supposed to get an average of 5 or 6. Some are getting 2 or 3. Some are getting 8 or 9. But that was only year 1. By the time year 2 comes around, it starts to mount up. They're not going to get to everyone because someone that's new and just is fighting for the first time, yeah, they're not going to be able to get to them. But I still believe that catching them off guard and saying, let's weigh in, and taking the average. Oh, we caught you on the holidays. You're normally we'll use you're a fighter, right? We'll call you a middleweight. And you fight at 185, but you usually cut from like 210. Well, guess what? On the holidays, we caught you around 215. But then the next time we catch you around 208, then we take the average. You're sitting around 212. We may still recommend light heavyweight to you. You know what I mean? That, along with all the other chemistry, the body chemistry that gets talked about, the percentage of your hydration levels or whatever. I think they really can come up with assigning you a weight class at that point, and there's really not much you can do, and there's really not much of gaming the system, because you may go 8 months without being weighed, or you may be weighed 2 times in 2 weeks. So I think that data that's being gathered is pretty accurate.
But how many of those tests would you have to conduct to get your average, right? At least maybe 10, right?
Well,
that's a lot of money sending people out.
Well, they're doing it every way, though.
Every man on the
roster.
They're
doing it every way
but not that many times, right?
Like I said,
for every fighter.
I think there's 500 on the roster, and I think the UFC pays USADA for about 3,000 or 3,500 tests per year. So we did the average one time. We said each guy and gal is going to be tested this amount of times. To get an average, you only need 2. 10 and 8, you're averaging 9. But the more, the better. So I don't know. It's not that hard for that guy, whatever gear he's got, to be carrying that scale underneath his armpit and saying, now we need you to do this. And that's about as accurate as you can get without just saying, can you step on a scale for me, I guess, via Skype or whatever. Even that can be manipulated.
Yeah, again, I think you need to really tackle the underlying I see what you're saying, and I think that's a step toward that. And I think it probably is a little foolish to think that fighters are just going to figure it out and make a culture change, and internally there's going to have to be some, forceful hand. But, the more you open it up to, appeals and complaints and, then it just becomes, the whole us versus them. And I mean, we've talked to fighters before. A lot of them have said, like, if I didn't think everybody else was cutting a ton of weight, I wouldn't be cutting a ton of weight. But until I get that insurance, I'm going to keep cutting a lot of weight just because I feel like I have to keep up, with the other guys. So I don't know. There's no easy solution. And unfortunately, I think, you would think we've had some wake-up calls with some of these deaths overseas and things like that. But unfortunately, I think it's going to have to take a high-profile UFC guy or Bellator guy.
Sucks that has to come to that.
That before, and you don't want it to get to that point, because that's when politicians start stepping in, and when the commissions want more control over things. And I mean, it could really be a step back for the sport. And it could go right back into issues with legislation and states wanting to ban it and stuff like that. And again, it's happening elsewhere, but it's just not high profile enough in the United States for anyone to take it seriously. And when it's the UFC, then, I mean, it's going to be on the ticker on ESPN. If sports reporters were still around, they'd be talking about it. Brian Gumbel will be, talking about it on Real Sports. I mean, it's going to become a mainstream issue as soon as it happens. And the way we're going, it's just a matter of time.
It's always the tragedies, too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? TBI got talked about, concussions got talked about, but I think when Gary Goodrich started coming out with his problems, we started going, wow, we got to start looking after these guys.
When you can put a name and a voice.
Mark Holman, remember the hip injuries? Yeah. And people were rallying for him, and how did it get to this point? Maybe they should have, some sort of a retirement set up for them. The weight cut stuff that's happened, Habib, for crying out loud, we lost a big fight, but I wasn't concerned about the fight because I know they can run it at some point, later this summer whenever he's available. Just me having to read that an athlete's kidney shut down, that's eerie to me. So it's always
24 hours before going into a fight. Yeah. I mean, and more often,
it's always the tragedy.
And now more 25-minute fights than ever before, because it's every main event. We're having multiple title fights. I mean, yeah, it's bad enough to get to the point your kidneys are shutting down, but then doing a fight against another guy trying to beat your ass the next day.
And even Tony Ferguson, he also said I think he said it was either sauna or draped in towels, but he was having some moments that he had to power through as well. That just don't sound right to me.
And I think as fans too, like, we would rather be watching guys who are as healthy as they can be going into a fight. Like, I'm not excited seeing a 195-pounder fighting a 170 pounds because he was able to make the weight. I'd rather see two guys who are fully rehydrated and in peak condition, or at least as close as you're going to get to it. Like, I'm much more excited to watch two guys at 100% instead of one or two guys who could cut a ton of weight and now look like Skeletor, out there. So I think we get better fights as fans. We get a better product if the guys quit cutting so much weight. So
one last thing, and I know we have to go to commercial. I've always thought too, if you and I are light heavyweights, we'll say, Dan, and according to what I just said earlier, you've been tested, you're clear of performance-enhancing drugs, but we got your weights, and your weights have been an average of 212, and mine have been an average of 216. You and I are called, but we've been fighting at light heavyweight because we've been making the weight. But now, somehow or another, mine 216 and your 212, we sign off on a catch weight of 214. So your average weights, you're still part of a weight class, but we don't want you going all the way down to 205, except if it's a title fight. When it really matters. Other than that, do we really need to be there? Both, because the UFC would get a better product when we'd stay closer to our weight. It'd be healthier. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, it makes sense. I part of me kind of has that issue of like, well, if guys are fighting for a 205-pound title fight or working their way toward a shot at the 205 belt, they should be fighting at 205 pounds.
But they're not fighting at 205. They're weighing in at 205, and 24 hours later, they're fighting at 225.
And that's a really great point. And I think I think we were getting close to that. You remember, it was a couple years ago, a few guys, like two opponents got together. I want to say, was one of them
Stout?
Stout, yeah.
Yeah, where they both looked at each other and go, what are you at?
Yeah.
Hey, what are you at? Hey, let's just shake hands.
Well, and then there was a guy, was it maybe a Joe Lazan fight or someone, where like even a month out, they're like, hey, let's do 160 or 160.
The guy from San Diego, KJ Noons, I thought was part of something like
that. And I thought, well, good, maybe the company's getting more in that direction, where if you've got two large light heavyweights and they both agree, like, wouldn't it make more sense for us to fight at 215, that the UFC and commission, everyone would be totally fine with that? I thought we were getting closer to that, and that would have been great to see. But obviously we haven't seen any of that recently, and I don't think they're on board.
I'd love to hear anybody's idea. Call in, ask, or tell us. 866-522-2846. We already have a couple callers in the queue, and we'll get to them when we come back. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM, Rush 93, and we got Dan Stupp in the house. See you soon.
They can drink Mentos-flavored Diet Coke without their stomachs giving a single fuck. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
The young man who lost his life this past weekend is Jordan Coe. He's a Scottish fighter who was living in Thailand, training in Thailand, and here's just a quick note from what I was reading about it. He left his hotel on Saturday around 11:30 a.m. dressed in heavier clothing to try and shed weight because he was, he's going to fight. He did not return that night. Police found him on Sunday in the Muang district, dead from what appeared to be a heat stroke. God. He had been in Thailand for 3 years as he trained and fought in Muay Thai. Terrible. Thoughts and prayers are with Jordan Coe's family and friends. 21 years old, man. Sad. All right, let's take some calls. 866-522-2846 is the number to call in. We'll start off with Jersey Mike. What's up, Mike? How you doing?
I'm all right. What about you guys? How you guys doing?
Good, man. Thank you.
I think you guys are having a really good conversation about weight cuts. I really hate weight cuts, and I'll even take it one step further, George. I think these guys should be weighed out of competition, and they shouldn't even have to weigh in, because Dan was saying the fans want to see a better fight, and I hate when people say, well, it's these guys' jobs to make weight.
Yeah.
Nobody's paying $50, $60, $70 to watch them in a sauna. I want to see good, healthy fighters. I want to see the best possible fights I can pay for.
Yeah. And there's been fighters that have proven that you can succeed doing that. Frankie Edgar. I mean, there's such a thing as a safe cut, guys, too. What we don't want is 20, 30 pounds in 24 hours or even across 6 weeks. Like, I'll give you an example. So I'm going to point to Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar told us, I walk around at 159. So he does cut to get to 45. But even that is one of the safer 145 cuts. But think about what he was doing at 55. That was hardly anything. It was maybe skip a meal and run on the treadmill, and that was it. You can push your body to a certain limit. So I get that. You want to make things fair across weight classes. But, yeah, it's the envelopes just started getting pushed from bigger guys that, I guess they fed off that, just knowing that if you locked up with me, you're going to feel this, and those 50-50 positions where we're both locked up against the cage. Well, guess who's going to wind up in top position? It was usually the heavier guy. Technique can only take you so far. But anyway, yeah, I'm enjoying the conversation too, Mike. And if anybody else has ideas, chime in and thank you for yours. But you want to say something?
Well, I was going to say, even if you're great, you're the greatest at cutting weight, at some point your body gets older.
Yeah.
And you're in the middle of your weight cut and you realize, well, shit, this used to be a lot easier. And that fighter goes through panic mode because he realizes my body's changing. Mm-hmm. So even the greatest guys have these problems. The problem is you don't know what's going to come up until you actually do it.
Yeah. Like, look at Johnny Hendricks. I know he's had his struggles lately, but this guy was a 4-time state champ in Oklahoma. He was a 3-time finalist at the NCAA level, Division I. He was a 2-time winner of his, I think, 157-pound division. So he really has cut weight all his life. So if you try and tell him, are you sure you're doing it right? He'll laugh at you. He'll tell you, I've been doing it all my life. But you're right, Goes. There is that one time where, guess what? Your body stops cutting. And a lot of it has to do with, I believe, is not only your age, is I think there's certain stresses that you're experiencing in your lifetime, and your body does tend to shut down. And I think the fighters, that's unexpected to them, because, wait a minute, all of a sudden my body shut down. That's not what's supposed to happen. Well, guess what? There are different factors that can be added to that, and I think that's one of them. But, we're just at a point where these 15 pounds make a lot of difference. I say at least let's start with cutting it to 10 from anywhere between 125 to 205. The heavyweight division, I know some want to cut that one in half, but there's not many heavyweights out there. And I think it's been proven that a 235-pound guy can be a world champion. It doesn't matter that someone's cutting from 290 to get to 265. So there's just going to be that division where that's just the case.
I think we need to shun guys, too, who do these massive weight cuts. And, that may not mean much coming from fans or media or anything, but I think it's on the fellow fighters to call out fighters. Mm-hmm. It's like, ooh, that guy cut from 195 down to 170. Like,
how do we know that, though?
Well, usually they tell us,
right?
Like.
But how do we prove it? Because now they'll stop telling you. They'll stop going. Oh yeah, I walk around at 85, 75.
Well, I think it's got to come from your own teammates and your manager and your trainers and stuff. Again, obviously people can skate by, but I mean, 5, 6, 7 years ago, we used to make a big deal. Like, oh man, like Thiago Alves is like, we thought that was cool, or a lot of people thought that was such a neat thing that he was able to cut so much weight. And it's like, instead of being impressed by that, we should be, chastising it. Other fighters should be like, not necessarily say, well, we should call your accomplishments into question because you did it almost by cheating. I mean, I think that's taking it a little far, but I think it should be on other guys just to be like, well, you got that win, but you also had, probably 10 or 15 pounds on him because you cut a hell of a lot more weight. So, I don't think it's any harm in pointing that out. So.
Jersey Mike, who do you have this weekend? King Mo or Rampage?
Oof, that's a tough one. I'm going to go with King Mo just because he's younger, and I like having him on the show all the time. So I don't want my pick to deter his appearance on the show.
That's what's up. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Marco from Waco. What's up, Marco?
Marco from Waco, ¿qué pasa, vato? And stand up.
Howdy.
Hey, Danny Avenger to the UFC, man. You guys need to start advocating that girl because 10 wins in a row, 11 wins in a row right now? Come on, man. What they're doing up there in the UFC?
Wait,
let me play devil's...
Tanya Avenger.
Tanya Avenger, sorry. I thought he said Danny somebody. That's why I was like, Danny who?
Nah.
Tanya Avenger, yeah, I agree, Marco. She should be part of the UFC at this point.
Let me play devil's advocate on this weight cutting issue.
All right.
Because we always complain about the outliers, but 90 to 95% of the fighters make weight without any issues. And we don't complain about that. Now, everybody applauded Rashad Evans when he went to 185, and we're always complaining that Frank Kega should go to 135. Why are you trying to force these guys to go down in weight if they're doing so well at 145 and 205? Everybody was ecstatic when Anthony Pettis dropped down to 145, even though it didn't work out too well for him. He realized, no, I got to go up. Maybe, and it's been happening lately on the promotion, is like the repeat offenders like Lineker, Gastelum, and even Johnny Hendricks. If they cannot make weight, the promotion should not offer them fights on the weight class anymore and force them to move up. They didn't offer Gastelum a fight at 170 anymore. They told him, you're fighting at 185. These are the fights we're offering you. Take it or leave it. And if you don't want to do that, you can, there is a door out of the UFC, go fight somewhere else with your weight cutting issues and stuff. That is just my opinion on that. And when it comes to Kimo and Rampage, I'm taking Rampage just because he's going to be heavier, talking about weight cutting issues, he's going to be the heavier guy. And quick question for you guys. Isn't this supposed to be his last fight on his Bellator settlement? Because he talking to one about that after this fight, he's supposed to go back to the UFC because with all this settlement that he got on court, he's supposed to come back to the UFC after this fight. We better let you guys catch you guys tomorrow.
See you, Marco. He was asked about that when he had a conference call, and he said he wasn't too sure where he stood with it. But if he did go back to UFC, it was for the one fight, but I believe he was still under contract to Bellator. Now with Quinton, I just don't know how much longer he'll fight. Maybe it'll take an ass whooping, I guess, to show him the door. You can tell he wants to leave the sport, but the money's there. He does win these key fights that keep him around, and he can sell a fight. That's for sure. People tune in, man. He's a ratings guy. Back in the day, I think he was not a pay-per-view juggernaut per se, but he could sell a pay-per-view. If I'm not mistaken, him and Rashad had one of the higher pay-per-view sales, and it wasn't even for a title.
Yeah.
But they had heat on that show, remember?
Yeah.
So there you go. He'll be around as long as he wants to cash a check. Let's go to Ford in Las Vegas. What's up, Ford? How you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. It's shaping up to be a pretty historical day for Las Vegas today, huh?
Yeah, Goes was bringing that up. Did you bring that up on the pre-fight or just in casual conversation?
I think just before the show started, yeah.
So what Ford's talking about is the Raiders, right? You talking about the Raiders? Is there a joke coming forward?
Absolutely. Oh, no, it's the Raiders.
One could say it's both.
That is a joke, though, ain't it?
I beat you to it, though.
So the question I got for you is, what do you guys all think about that? I mean, are you guys excited about it? And for a 49er fan like George, are you guys going to welcome jabronis like Juan Ramirez over to the 49ers now?
Yeah, you opening your doors, George?
He was family at one point, and then he moved to the Oakland Raiders. But look, I think it brings excitement to the city. Even though I pulled away from hockey years ago, even the hockey team coming to
Golden Knights.
The Golden Knights coming, I think it's in the 2018 season. That's going to be big for the city. And so even though the Raiders aren't my team, I think even that will be big for the city. I think that stadium is also going to attract other stuff, like, for example, a Final Four. It's just a matter of time, I think, before you get a Final Four, a WrestleMania, a Pro Bowl, super fights from boxing or MMA. So, yeah, and it's right across the street from the Mandalay Bay, so I think it's going to be huge for, this campus.
I like to do a little sports betting, as I know other MMA Junkie radio listeners do. I think it's good. Like, I want them to have an NFL franchise here, be able to bet on games here, and realize the world's not going to end and everything's not corrupt and going to crap. I think it'll be good. And like you said, I think making Vegas more of a sports town and actually hosting the events. There's just this. The whole sports gambling thing, I think, has kept that away for so long. And I think we're starting to see cracks in that, and that people are starting to understand it's not a big deal. And DraftKings opened that door for that. Some commissioners, the NBA specifically, speaking out against it. Even the UFC, said they're in favor of sports gambling. So I think it's a move toward that. I'd love to see nationwide sports gambling legalized.
And Ford, I think there's a 50% chance every 4 years that you could see your Giants in Las Vegas.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very excited about that, man. So it's an exciting time, man. Sure, we're getting a scrub team, but that stadium is going to be awesome. It's going to bring a lot of good times here to the Vegas locals.
I know you want me to get to it. All right, I'll ask. Who do you think's going to win, King Mo or Rampage? I know you'll be watching this weekend.
I think I'll be the one winning because I won't be watching.
I knew he'd leave us with something. All right, so we'll put him as in for neutral. All right, let's take this last break of the first hour. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. When we come back, we'll keep talking weight cutting. I think there's still a few more points to hit. Some of the latest news from this past weekend. We'll still keep taking predictions on King Mo versus Rampage at Bellator 175. It goes down this Friday night. I can't wait. I love it when two fighters have heat, and these two do not like each other. Stay close. We'll be right back.
They are the Wright brothers of mixed martial arts. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
Don't forget, in the second hour, we'll be talking to Tito Ortiz, UFC Hall of Famer, former UFC lightweight heavyweight champion, and also recently retired from Bellator with a win over Chael Sonnen. Got a few questions to ask him. A little bit of a catch-up. He's had 30 days of retirement. We'll see how that's going, along with maybe some predictions from a division that he used to be a part of. We have about 5 minutes, so we each get 1 minute to share our Stungun stories from this past weekend. Goes, you go first.
Nah, you go first.
Okay. Victoria, you go first.
Okay. So I was babysitting my 4-year-old nephew.
That son of a bitch. Stungun him.
Just like that?
Do
He's
it right
4 years
now.
old.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead. What else?
So he was picking on his little brother who is 3, and I told him to stop, and he, under his breath, he said, "Shut up."
Oh.
So I said, "No, you shut up." So we were going back and forth with, "No, you shut up, you shut up." Then finally he comes in and he goes, "No, you shut up, you B word."
Ooh.
He called you a brat?
So, yeah.
Wow. How old is he again?
4.
Give him another jolt, Goes.
Believe
Wow,
that?
the B word. So what happened after that?
Well, so I told my cousin, and she had a talk with him, and he told her that I told him to shut up first. So that was my weekend.
Any soap in the mouth?
No,
How about soap and a sock? That's what I would have done.
with some coins.
With coins, right?
Yeah.
All right. Goes, you want to go now?
Sure.
All right.
I love me some waitresses at Mandalay Bay.
Oh, let me get out of the way.
Nicest people on the planet. However, they think it's hilarious to get us drunk. And over March Madness, they fed us a lot of drinks that look like that. That is supposed to be a vodka and cranberry.
All I see is a tiny splash of cranberry at the bottom.
I think maybe one of the waitresses cut her finger and a droplet of blood fell into the drink, because that is all the cranberry they put in it. The rest is all vodka. And they did that to us for 5 days, George.
Ew.
Damn. But, most people wouldn't bitch about a stiff drink. A lot of times people will say, like, hey, top me off here or whatever.
Yeah,
You're saying
but
there's limits to it?
I know them, and you can tell, too, when they're looking into the studio to see us and laugh and giggle. They're trying to jack us up.
Stand up. What about you?
Well, this lady kept telling me to shut up, so I had to call her the B word a few days
Oh,
ago.
yeah?
But other than that, no, I honestly don't have any. Usually when I have the worst travel luck. I mean, it's one of the reasons I quit traveling so much. And you would think going from Nashville to L.A. to Vegas and having to do some late flight changes and dealing with luggage and all that I would have all kinds of things, and I can't think of anything that's pissed me off lately, and I can rarely say that. So I guess other than you calling me a jabroni a little bit ago,
That was a good one.
I think that's about it.
Oh,
So.
I felt that.
Yeah. But you also picked me up from the airport, so I guess
He did say, no disrespect. That should have fixed
Yeah.
everything, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. It's like, no offense, but you're a total D-bag. But no offense, so don't worry about it.
So check this out. My stun gun story has to do with March Madness. So I used to be in the corporate world before being part of the show. These pools just get passed around everywhere, and nothing gets on my tits more than when someone wins it and they don't know jack shit about March Madness or college hoops. It's usually a secretary who her husband or boyfriend was going to fill it out. She forgot to, and then when there's 50 minutes left, she just goes in there and has the 1 beating the 16, 2 beating the 15, the 3 beating the 14, and so on. And then in the end, it's 4 number ones in the final 4. And she's got that little innocent laugh, but she's the one laughing all the way to the bank. So that's cool when they do it. They don't know any better.
Yeah, you look at it as easy money.
I
Thanks
have
for
a
the
buddy
$25.
who has raised 3 boys, and they're all athletes. They're all studs, right? One of them actually plays at a level that I can't share much about, and I'll tell you guys off air why. But anyway, let's just say 2 of the 3 are part of the pool. So the dad's cool. He lets it do it. The wife doesn't know, though. And so they're playing. And then I started examining, why is one of these little bastards ahead of me? I can't win. If North Carolina wins it all, I can't win. Why? Because he's ahead of me. So I started going, well, what did he do that I didn't? I know. I was a gunslinger. I was a risk taker in the early rounds. And I was trying to have some fun with it while Mr. Conservative decided to have the 1 and the 2s all the way to the Elite 8. The 3s, they all stayed alive. The 4s all stayed alive. I think even the 5s and 6s were. And I was like, come on, man. Where's your, like, sense of, like adventure and like I said, risk take. You know what I mean? I don't want to roll with a guy like that. If I had 2 tickets and I had the options of Gentleman A, the older son, or Gentleman B, I would take Gentleman B to hang out, because Gentleman B strikes me as the guy that's going to, like, throw peanuts at the guy in front of us and horse around. You know what I mean? Have a good time. Gentleman B had Oregon going all the way to the Final Four. I saw it. I go, what? Nobody called that. Nobody called Oregon over Kansas. And I thought that was legit. So we're stun gunning Gentleman A, and Gentleman B, he's getting props.
Touch of gloves?
Touch of gloves, yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. One day I'll share why I couldn't get specific with the names, but I have to leave it at that. That's the end of the first hour. In the second hour, we have Tito Ortiz coming your way. We'll also take your calls at 866-522-2846. Stay close.
I'm gonna have me some fun. It cost me my very last dime.
All right, here we go with the second hour of the MMA Junkie Radio Show. We got MMA Junkie co-founder Dan Stupp in studio with us. Dan, I'm going to take you back about 8 years ago. Goz and I are approaching 10 years of doing MMA Junkie Radio. On a technicality, it's closer to 8 as MMA Junkie Radio. We had a couple years as Tag Radio, but there was also an overlap of when you guys had acquired us before we made the official announcement. But you all had been recapping us for about 9.5 of the 10 years. So I feel like it's, regardless, we're MMA Junkie Radio now. I did want to ask you, I've shared the story many times of me missing the flight in New York. I log on to, what's the old school chat? MSN? Or something like that.
Yeah, probably.
What was it?
Yahoo Messenger.
Yahoo Messenger. One of those.
AOL.
And so next thing
no, actually, I think it was AOL.
Was it really?
And then Yahoo, yeah.
Oh, shit.
So that's how long ago the story was. And Dan, I caught him online.
You guys were in the same chat room?
And I rerouted my trip to Cincinnati.
Both trolling for 14 years.
We met at a Brazilian barbecue. We had lunch, and you told me to write down, what does it cost to keep the ship afloat? I wrote it down. You had to take it back to your former partners that we discussed earlier on the show as well, who are no longer part of MMA Junkie. But were we ever close to not making a deal? Like where Goz and I wouldn't even be talking about 2,500 shows or a 10-year anniversary? Like did it take any convincing? Was it a slam dunk? And feel free to be as honest as however that phone call went down with the guys.
No, I mean, I don't remember any resistance or anything. I think it was just a matter of talking to Tom and Eric, and by then they had an understanding of kind of how critical the content was to MMA Junkie. And, like some of the radio recaps we do now do a lot of traffic. Most of them are, kind of mid-level guys, so, mid-level interest, and which is great. But, back then it was like me and then just me and John Morgan, and we had a couple freelancers who did a story like once a month or so. So, I mean, that was a huge source of our unique content and unique interviews and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, as important as you guys are to our content now, it was doubly so back then. So I think once, I talked to Tom and Eric, from what I remember, it was just like, this is what it's going to cost. Obviously it's worth it because of the content, so let's get it figured out. And, a lot of the stuff we did in the early years of MMA Junkie, we never borrowed money, never went into debt really or anything like that. And we didn't even take advertising for the first year because, we didn't want that to be the focus. So yeah, it just it was a really important part of our content. So I think a lot of the stuff we did, it's just let's figure out how we make it work financially and take it from there. And luckily, it's all worked out.
The traffic's always been organic too, for the most part.
Yeah, no, I mean from like I said, within 2 or 3 days of launching MMA Junkie, we were getting like 1,000 visitors a day, and back then, that blew our minds. But I think we do a good job with the website, and especially back then we did. But more than anything, it was just the right topic at the right time without much competition. I think it was, Sure Dog Weekly, and that was about it. There were some other sites, Full Contact Fighter and things like that. But for the most part, it was just a lack of competition, and just, it was when The Ultimate Fighter was taking off, and UFC 67, when George St. Pierre was starting to reach his peak, and Anderson Silva was coming on the scene. So it was just the right topic at the right time. I don't know, I could put the same effort into, another topic or another website, but I don't think it would probably be as successful because it was like the perfect storm of, there was a void to fill, and we filled it, and I think we filled it pretty well.
I was just about to ask you that. Can a feeling like that, taking something from nothing to something so big, can that become addicting? Almost, I hear like people who invent apps, as soon as they're done with one, they can't wait to build another one.
You put so much into it, like, I've got a friend out in L.A., Jill, and her husband started his own company, and was telling me he hasn't had a day off in 5 years, like legitimately hasn't had a day off in 5 years, and almost every day is like full-time work, if not overtime. And I know what that's like. I did that for 5 years, and I was miserable. I mean, it was fun and exciting launching a business and things like that, but that just daily grind and, you being solely responsible for it or feeling like you're solely responsible for it, I mean, it weighs on you. There's a lot of good, and I think it was good for me because I saw that and a few other projects I worked on even before that, some little books and things like that. But when you can actually get something like that done and off the ground, it it doesn't necessarily, it's not the high of wanting to do it again. It's kind of that self-confidence of knowing I can do, a big thing if I really put my mind to it. And that's come in handy with some other stuff. But, yeah, I mean, just the grind and the scariness of it and, quitting my other job to do that full-time, it was scary. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of positives, but, like any project that's worth a damn, there's a lot of scary moments that come with it, just like you guys probably experienced when you started the radio show.
You are like one of the most low-key dudes. You don't like shout-outs or props or anything like that. But I remember once we exchanged some information, so hopefully it's a comfortable topic. But what I want to know is, I always say on this show, competition is good. People should really root for Bellator to knock one out of the park and for them to keep signing some free agents, because it will push the UFC, and the UFC will become better as well. And the World Series will do that to Bellator, and they all kind of just drive each other. Now, maybe the UFC will buy Bellator or World Series one day, because that's kind of what happened with Strikeforce when they pushed them and Pride, and those are always some glorious times too. But I wanted to ask you, how do you feel like you changed the game in terms of covering the sport? There was Sherdog and there was Weekly. It was a solid 1-2 punch. We're still in existence, doing great work. But if I'm not mistaken, weren't you the first guy that started getting, for example, the salaries? Like, there was some things through your studies at the University of Missouri, you knew some stuff was public and attainable.
Yeah, I mean, salaries, medical suspension, official gate figures, comp versus, paid tickets. We stumbled on a lot of that stuff, but honestly, I think a lot of people would have stumbled on it. I think what we did when Junkie first came on the scene, and it wasn't just us, other websites started popping up, but I think we started approaching the sport like, how do you cover this on a day-to-day basis? And granted, Sherdog and Weekly, I'm pretty sure they had at least daily content going up. But we looked at it, I think, more as a 24-hour news cycle. And as soon as news breaks, we're trying to get it up. And even some of the stuff that seems, pretty minute and not that important, like, the announced gate figure versus the official gate figure a couple of weeks later. It may not seem like a huge thing, but it's like, and we had people say, I was like, why? No one even cares about the attendance. Why are you reporting it? Or back in the day, TV ratings were a lot more important because the sport was trying to grow and catch on. But, a lot of people would be like, why are you covering this stuff? It's like, look, someone's got to create a record of this stuff. From years from now, we may want to know what that attendance figure was, because it was Conor McGregor's first fight, but back then we didn't realize that this Conor McGregor kid was going to be something special or whoever. Mm-hmm. So for us, it was more about documenting every aspect of the sport that we could think of and creating a 24-hour news cycle. And part of that was, figuring out new stuff to cover that maybe not everybody thought was newsworthy, but that, medical suspensions, I don't think anyone ever put those out. And if they did, it was just the guys who got 180-day suspensions. But I think, MMA fans became a lot more involved and wanted to know, like, hey, that guy who just fought, could he fight again in a month or two if he wanted to? And that's where the medical suspensions come into play. So I think we helped contribute to that idea of covering MMA as a 24-hour news cycle. And back then, 10 years ago, it was a lot harder, because I think the first year we started Junkie, 2006, the UFC had 14 events, and now they have like 45. So there's a hell of a lot more to cover now, so it's easier to cover a 24-hour news cycle and being, covering a lot of stuff. But back then, it was kind of tough finding stuff to cover. Like, I remember not bragging, but one of our talking points on our MySpace page, which just shows you how far we're going back. It's like, hey, MMA Junkies updated daily, sometimes even up to 4 to 6 times a day. And it's like, God, now we've got 10 stories published before noon, But back then, the fact that we had 4 to 6 unique news items seemed like such a revolutionary thing, and now it's just it's standard.
What about the day that the company was sold? We often hear about what Dana went through.
11/11/11. Like,
what was he at the Palace Station? Right, he was locked up in a room for a couple days or something like that. How did you feel that day?
By then, I knew it was, without a doubt, the best person to acquire us was USA Today, because they believed in MMA and they were really gearing up to start challenging ESPN and the other big sports groups. That's one of the big things in our industry is you've got like Turner Sports, which is Bleacher Report. You got ESPN. You got NBC Sports. You have the NFL Media Group. There's about 10 or 12 large sports entities. SB Nation and Vox is one of them. You know, the MMA fighting sites, Bloody Elbow, and but you know, the thing we do each month is, you know, that group versus this group, who moves up in the ratings or not. And back then, when USA Today bought us, they weren't even like in the top 15, I think. And now we're like 4th or 5th, depending on the month. And part of that was that they were gearing up to not just have USA Today Sports, but these other websites that they own. You know, they acquired us, thebiglead.com, Hoops Hype. They call them owned and operated sites, O&Os. But, you know, we knew they were the right group because they were really gearing up to get to that next level. So we knew they were going to be investing in it and stuff. But honestly, the process was so drawn out, too. It's like, I just want this to be done. And part of the reason I wanted it to be done, like, it's scary kind of going back in from doing my own thing, back into the corporate world like we all were, you know. And by then, Steven was on staff. Ben Folks came in after the acquisition. John was on there. We had a lot of freelancers, the radio show, stuff like that. But you know, I knew they were going to have the resources that we needed. You know, we needed some structure. We needed some tech help. And as soon as that deal was done, we were going to get that stuff. So it was almost like Christmas morning. It's like, okay, now we're going to get things to the next level. So I know a lot of people talk about being scary, or they kind of regret it, or they feel like they lost a kid, or a kid went to college or something. But for me, it was like Christmas morning because I knew we were about to take things to the next level and get the resources and the help we needed. Mm-hmm. And one of the first things we did was hire Matt Erickson and Ben Folks. So that tells you right there that they were definitely, you know, USA Today was committed to giving us the resources we need to take things to the next level.
Earlier in the show, we talked about Rampage Jackson and his comments of him wishing he never even did it because of family and friends, being disconnected from that. Can you sympathize at all with anything he said? Did you ever go through anything like that where you noticed, hey, man, I'm seeing less of my friends, I'm seeing less of my family, I'm working 7 days a week?
Yeah, while I was in Los Angeles for meetings and stuff, I saw some friends in my spare time, and one of those was a relationship that went bad because I had spent so much time getting junkie off the ground and not communicating with friends. And no, I mean, it wasn't just multiple people in my life. I kind of lost my family. You know, it was harder to stay in contact with them. And part of it was the travel. Part of it was just not having days off. And part of it was just being miserable from the grind. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't regret doing it. I'm glad I did it. And I think anyone who's going to launch a big project, whether it's a business or a book or some other venture, you know, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, like it's a 24-hour job thing. And it comes with a lot of sacrifices. So if you're not in a good spot mentally and financially and family-wise, any of those issues is just going to be magnified when you try to start a project like that that's going to eat up so much of your time. So just be prepared for, you know, some bumpy times, and we definitely had them. But, I mean, looking back, it was worth it. You know, like I'm really happy with what MMA Junkie's become, the team we've assembled, the company we work for, the things that we've accomplished. And, you know, I got lifelong friends and you guys and John Morgan and Matt Erickson and all the guys from the website, you know, Mike Bond and Fernando, all these new people we get to hire over the years. But, you know, like anything, whether going to college, starting a new job, starting a new business, like, you know, you're going to have tough times, but it makes the rewards all the sweeter just because of all the stuff you went through.
George and I often get asked by people, I want to start a podcast. What should I do? And normally, I don't know, I can't speak for you, George, but normally I say, don't do it.
Me too.
I'm sure you get asked that question a lot.
I would, and that's like a really good way to put it. And if they can come back and actually argue and explain why they should do it, then they're probably in a good spot to do it. But if your first thing is, how do I do it, then you haven't done nearly enough legwork to even, you know, start asking someone about it. Like, if I'm getting smart questions, like, you know, and we have a lot of people reach out, hey, I want to work for Junkie. How do I do that? It's like, well, you haven't gotten started off to a good start yet, because you would probably know, like, hey, I notice most of your writers have experience already. So if you come to me with a specific question, like, hey, I'd like to write for Junkie one day, or I'd like to write for another big website like MMA Fighting or SureDog one day, how do I do that? You know, I'll give you, you know, some advice to work your way up, find some smaller sites to get your feet wet, you know, study the art of writing, find writers that you like and read all their stuff. But, yeah, so, you know, if someone's coming to me, well, how do I become an MMA writer? It's like, well, you haven't done enough legwork on your own yet for me to even give you any advice that's worth a damn. And it'd be the same way. I mean, is that your natural reaction when someone's like, what do I do to start a podcast? It's like, well, first you go to Google. Like, that's a really good, don't come to me, go to Google first, and you'll learn a lot of stuff then. But when people come to me with very specific questions, and it's obvious they've done some legwork, you know, I'll do everything I can to help them. But, you know, I want some assurance or some idea that someone's actually put in it. Because a lot of times people reach out with, you know, advice, and you know, John Morgan and Ben and Matt Erickson, you know, we'll take a lot of time to respond, and then you never even get a response like a thank you or anything. And it's like, you know, not that anyone owes you that, but you kind of feel like they do, or at least, I mean, it's simple, hey, thanks, I really appreciate you taking the time. And not that I'm an egomaniac or anything like that, but, you know, there's a lot of people when I was kind of working my way up and as a kid in school who responded to me anytime they did. I was so thankful. You know, I made sure to tell them things and stuff like that.
Think about when you get a thank you note, like from you attended someone's wedding and then they write you back or whatever, or a kid, you give them a gift. It does mean something. So I've described you as a hole poker, and I think if someone comes to you with a plan of this is what I want to do, what I've noticed is you fire off and say, well, let me start poking holes in your plan. It's not because you want them to not succeed, but you already want to start getting answers to some of the questions you may have, and it's something that has rubbed off on me because I'll do it as well. When people come to me and say, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that, my opener is don't do it. If you're asking me, should I say don't do it because it's really competitive now. I mean, there's a ton of podcasts, ton of radio shows, ton of websites. So you have to realize what you're getting in bed with if you're ever going to do it. But if you are, the first thing I'm going to do is start poking holes, you know, in what you have lined up, because it's really difficult to do what has been accomplished here.
And if that person can come back to you and be like, no, actually I should start it, and this is why, because this website, or because this podcast is different from the MMA Hour, and it's different from your guys' podcast, and it's different from this podcast because of this reason. You know, this is what makes it unique. And if you've done enough legwork to make a compelling argument, you know, about why you should do it, then you're probably on the right track. So,
you know, you brought up some names: Simon, Fernanda, Mike. I feel like we're losing something here with not having an MMA junkie hazing or initiation or something. Too many of these new names have come on, George, and they have not suffered.
What was the gentleman from USA Today that was part of the purchase that came along? He wrote for the site for a while because he used to cover MMA.
Oh, yeah.
And we had Joey slug him in the belly.
Bo Durr.
Who?
No.
Sergio. Yeah, something like that.
He's the only one I remember that went through it. We got to come up with something.
Yeah, Simon needs to get leg kicked or something.
Look what happened to Morrow, man. I mean, that was brutal.
Mike Bond got a little hazing. I don't think Fernanda got any. Simon hasn't gotten any. And if I'm Mike, I'm thinking, why did I get it and those guys didn't get it? So I think Mike should be in charge of it.
What did Mike get?
I don't know. We still call him young Mike Bond and treat him like a 12-year-old. And part of it is because he is really young, but part of it is because it's kind of fun screwing with him. So.
Can you touch on why we don't do TV ratings anymore?
Yeah, I mean, they had kind of served their purpose. I mean, when we originally did them, it was kind of important because you wanted to know, like, that the Ultimate Fighter was doing well, or that, you know, it was after the UFC got a deal with Versus, you know, or with FS1 or these new platforms, and you wanted to see how they were doing. And Bellator, like one season to the next, were they gaining steam or not? And the traffic kind of justified doing those stories. You know, we definitely saw the traffic kind of tail off from what they used to be. People just didn't really care about TV ratings anymore because there weren't new platforms and stuff. I mean, and part of it was, you know, you had promoters complaining that, well, you were totally wrong on the numbers, or you totally took them out of context. And I was like, well, it was total viewers. How are you taking total viewers out of context? It's like because we did really well among, you know, 18 to 49-year-old males named Steve who live in Ohio. Those ratings were spectacular. How could you not, you know, talk about Steve in Ohio? And it was like, okay, well, you think those are important because they make you look good. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, you want us to push the rival promotions numbers that look bad with women between 24 and 36 named Sharon who live in Massachusetts. Like, you want us to focus on those because they make your competitor look bad. So, you know, that's why I always went with total viewers. Like that, you know, you can argue that this demographic's more important than this demographic, but total viewers kind of tells the whole story. But honestly, traffic tailed off. It was kind of more trouble than it was worth. I don't think the readers really cared anymore. And especially once the UFC signed like a long-term deal with Fox and Bellator had the long-term deal with Spike, the rating coverage wasn't as important because those organizations weren't looking to go on new homes or to prove that they belonged on these new homes. And back then that was a big part of MMA, whether they could even sustain themselves on regular TV. We didn't even have those guarantees 7 or 8 years ago. So
has journalism gone the way where Goes and I should be getting stoned, stalking McCarran Airport with the dumbest fucking camera alive and just going up to fighters or promoters and going, hey man, what's up? Answer a question or two? How does TMZ just have so much success? Is it just people just want to, it doesn't matter the quality of the video or the question, it's just hands-on and it takes 90 seconds and that's what the new audience wants to consume? Is that where we're headed? You think it's a phase? What's the deal?
I mean, it's access, and it's not easy for people to get access. And if you have access, whether you forced it or you were invited, if MMA Junkie, if every day Conor McGregor called us each morning with his 30 seconds of thoughts for that day, and we ran them, that would probably be our top story every day, just because that's what people care about. Is that good journalism? I mean, 30 seconds with no follow-up questions and no focus. I mean, no, it's probably not good journalism, but I know it's going to be our most clicked story. And I think our job now, kind of in the current state of online journalism, it's been like this way for a long time, but especially now where so much of your business is based on clicks and the traffic and stuff like that. I think you have to do your best, and it's not an exact science, and you'll never get it down pat, but you've got to try to find a balance between what clicks and what's important. And I think we do cover some dumb stuff, Twitter beefs, and but it's crazy knockouts that really don't have much editorial content, but it was just a really cool thing to see, or a really funny thing to see. That
flying armbar, wow.
Yeah, I mean, that thing just keeps, and it's because it keeps catching a new life on social media. And it's not because it's great journalism, it's just a really cool thing to see. So I think for us, for most websites, it's trying to keep a balance of what's clicky, what's fun, what do people want to read, and what do we feel like we owe it to the reader to give them. And that's where I think, me or Mike Bond or some of the other guys on the website, we can find some of the clickier stuff that we know people are going to want to talk about, and it's not going to take us a lot of time to put it together. But we also want to do a really important weight-cutting story and have Ben Folks or Steven Morocco work on that to balance out some of the smaller stuff the rest of us are working on. So, again, I think it comes down to, we're in a place where you can cover the dumb stuff, the clicky stuff, the funny stuff. I think if you want to be taken seriously and if you want to feel good about the job you're doing, you just try to find that good balance. So you're doing some real journalism and contributing something to the discussion while also doing a little bit of entertaining on the side.
Dan is like Gene Hackman in the movie Hoosiers. What was his name? Norman Dale?
Mm-hmm.
He wants to run the type of offense where you pass the ball, you get a clean shot, you play defense. You know what I mean? You're always on time to practice, this and that. But the problem is the way the sport is going, or in this case, journalism. It's like those and one street ball, lobs and dunks and around the back passes. And I can sense sometimes, some of these things like Twitter beefs or these shady videos.
fundamentally sound razzle dazzle. I want some razzle dazzle, but I want it to be fundamentally sound.
But you went to Missouri, and you're always proud of the fact that that I believe is the number one rated. You want to get that? Sure. Number one rated journalism school?
I mean, it depends who's kind of ranking them, but if it's not number one, it's among the top, with like your Northwestern, Syracuse, Illinois, Kansas.
It's like going
Georgia.
to Harvard for law.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why I'm wondering, when you were in Missouri, what years did you go, by the way?
97 to 2001.
So there wasn't like, today we're going to cover Twitter beefs. Or today we're going to cover what TMZ does.
It was I went into high school, or I left high school going into college thinking, if I had to think of a dream job, it would probably be helping little, like, hometown newspapers get set up online. Mm-hmm. And I saw that in my hometown, which was Springfield, Ohio, a town of about 60,000 people, so a decent-sized city, and they had just gotten their newspaper online. So I went into college thinking, I want to learn some computer science, I want to learn journalism, and, when I graduate, could be something I help these small newspapers with. Well, within that 4 years, before I had even graduated, that had already been done. Like, all the newspapers had gotten online. And it's just because things change that quickly. But even back then, 97, 2001, you had a solid understanding of where the things were headed and that it was all going to be online. And back then, like, online journalists versus a print journalist, they kind of looked down on the online folks. And you knew that was going to change. So you saw it going that way. But, yeah, I mean, I never would have envisioned things like Twitter and or that Facebook and, back then it would have been MySpace
or Friendster. Remember
Friendster? that would have become such an outlet for athletes to speak directly with fans. Like, I didn't fully appreciate that aspect of social media. So yeah, I mean, you could kind of sense where it was going, and back then, we studied some of the online stuff in journalism, but you definitely, what it is today. It would have been hard to envision that 15 years ago.
All right, folks, we're going to take a break. We got to get our big break out of the way. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. We got Dan Stupp, the co-founder of MMA Junkie, here in studio with us, and we're also going to talk to Tito Ortiz at about 2:45 p.m. Eastern, 11:45 a.m. Pacific. So stick around, and we'll still take calls. 866-522-2846. DJ Tony, you'll be up first when we come back.
They taught Andy Griffith how to whistle. Here are Gorgeous George and Goes.
I feel like Jim Miller's going to walk through that door anytime soon.
He should.
Yeah. All right, 3 things, because we're going to go pretty back-to-back on our commercials here. So the first is the Raiders are coming to Las Vegas. Your reaction goes?
I like it because I'm a football fan.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of sucks a little bit with UNLV is kind of like the sports team here.
Right. Yeah.
And I think their attendance is going to suffer a little bit between Golden Knights, Raiders. So it sucks in that aspect, but I'm down. I like it. We're going to have a nice stadium.
Not football, though, is going to suffer, right?
No, because they're actually going to be part of this deal at a certain
basketball.
capacity.
But basketball, if they play well, that thing fills up.
Yeah.
Dan Stupp, you care to share anything about the Raiders moving to Vegas?
Well, as a Cincinnati Bengals fan, I just want you guys to buckle up and realize that once you put in 15 to 20 losing seasons, usually you get a winner or two. You will get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs.
Kind of like the broken clock is right 2 times.
Yeah, so it's kind of the equivalent of an expansion team. So just be willing to put in your time if you're going to be a Vegas NFL fan. As a Bengals fan, I know a little something about that.
I think that stadium will be great for the city, and maybe the Niners will play here. And honestly, I'm a fan of football, so if the Raiders are playing well and another great team comes and tickets are somewhat affordable. I don't know. Maybe I'll get in there and check it out.
You got at least one game a year, right?
I think so. Yeah. So it's.
Are they doing a
Vegas
dome?
Keeps growing.
No.
Are you sure?
It's retractable.
Well, that's good enough.
I'll show you.
Right?
It'll
open.
Incredible.
It does.
It looks.
It is
so
super
cool.
state of the art. That's why you'll see a WrestleMania, a Final Four. I think you'll have mega fights. Combat sports, so boxing, MMA, whatever. So it's going to be huge. And then maybe college football, they'll pick up a bowl. Maybe the Pro Bowl will come here. I don't know, but it's going to be big for the city. And, good for the Raiders, man. They lucked out.
A rendering of it. So it has an open end. I think it's on the other end. You can see it over here. That's our hotel right there.
Yeah, see how close it is, Dan?
It's closed up top. It'll retract, though.
I can think of worse weekends. Right? I can think of worse weekends than coming to Vegas to catch a UFC fight on Saturday night and an NFL game.
Tell me about it. How about the Monday night game, too?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
If you have to extend
with
your
the
trip.
sports books and stuff, too.
Right.
What I want them to do that T-Mobile didn't do is whenever they show that standard stock image of the Las Vegas Strip, it just says T-Mobile real tiny. It doesn't light up. It should light up. It should have that Vegas feel. The sign is so small. Hopefully the Raiders will have something that lights up or something, gives that Vegas feel.
The other thing was I noticed there's a story by Mike Bond. UFC 210's Chris Weidman wants to recapture championship glory more than anything. Quote, more than anything, I should say. And then we also had put something up with Gegard Mousasi. And Mousasi will be a guest of ours on Friday. But how pumped up are you for a fight like this? I love it when the stakes are just high. You got Mousasi on a win streak, chasing down Jacare, chasing down Romero, and then he's got to kick away the Daniel Kellys and the Whitakers that are chasing him for a spot to fight the winner of Bisping in a GSP. Love the way the middleweight division is shaken out. And can you imagine the pressure Chris Weidman's feeling? To lose 3 in a row would be devastating after being a world champion. He'd be really far from capturing, what do you say?
In the clear number one.
More than anything.
He wasn't a paper champion or anything. Like, you could have maybe made that argument after the first Anderson fight, but we've seen Anderson kind of fall off, and then there was obviously the second fight. So, no, I mean, that division is feast or famine. It's either usually terrible or awesome, and it's definitely in one of the awesome cycles right now. So.
Let's talk to DJ Tony from San Francisco. What's up, Tony?
Coming at ya, gentlemen. How are you? Good morning. Listen, I've been really busy, obviously traveling, but the one thing I had to do is, my favorite people in all of MMA is Gorgeous George and Goes, but I had to call in and say thanks to Dan Stupp, who was our first, thanks to Joe from H-Town. He was our first guest ever on AMP Radio, and, he was part of why we were able to take off and do pretty well. So I just want to say thanks a lot, you guys, all of you guys. You guys are amazing, and Gigi obviously doing the championship rounds. You guys are amazing, and you guys have a following for a reason. So I just want to say, props to Dan Stupp, Junkie Radio, and And you guys are amazing. So thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Those were guys who obviously knew they wanted to do it and did the legwork. So, yeah, it was easy for us to help them when they've already done most of the legwork and really did the research into starting a podcast. So, congrats to those guys.
Yeah, they're going to be closing in on a year pretty soon.
Wow.
And that first year is probably one of the toughest.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of projects come and go, and it's easy to start off. And then 10 episodes in, you start going, why am I doing this? Am I getting paid? Or what's next? What's the next levels?
I should have been famous by now.
Yeah. and that just, oh, man, it takes so much more than that.
You're
Showtime.
Right. You're right, though. A year is a big deal. So,
Showtime in Tennessee. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
Not much, Showtime. It's your time.
Yeah, I wanted to call in also and thank Dan, man. I'm a big fan of you guys, and basically just it means a lot to us junkies for you guys to have the platform, to be able to talk MMA pretty much, 7 days a week. And I love it, man. I also wanted to comment, too, on the earlier you guys were talking about Tanya Evinger. I really just think, man, if she was a lot more, quote unquote, as some people would say, attractive, more eye candy, which she still is probably attractive to, to somebody, I think she would be in the UFC already. This chick is amazing, man. I mean, she's a grinder. Pretty much, I think she's the Dan Kelly of women fighters. If I had to put her in a category, and to let her come in there and basically just crash the party of some of the little cutie pies that they have in there. I think that they would hate for her to be the champion, to be honest, especially with how they're doing it right now with all the big fights and quote-unquote popularity contests. I just think it's not fair that she hadn't made it yet, to be honest. I read the article this past weekend after the fight, and I totally agree with the gentleman that wrote it, man. I want to see her get a shot. And the Father Time is not stopping for anybody, so it's kind of now or never for her, with her age.
Yeah, I heard that. Thanks for calling in. Okay. Well, it has never hurt a female to be good-looking and a good fighter, but I don't think that's the top criteria. I mean, she's a world champion. She does talk her fair share of smack. She's on a win streak. I mean, she has got the credentials to get into the UFC, regardless of anything else, in my opinion, and I hope it happens soon.
Not just
females,
females,
I do crack
though.
up at the fact that
I
haven't heard cutie pie in a long time. I guess I'd be an idiot to try and fool anyone and think that wouldn't help. But a lot of the cutie pies that do fight in MMA are just badass fighters too, man. I got to give them their props. I noticed you two didn't want to chime in on this topic,
Nah.
So we'll go to commercial. This is the second commercial and the last commercial of the second hour. When we come back, we'll be talking to Tito Ortiz, former UFC light heavyweight champion. We'll be right back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM, Rush 93.
time you dress so fine, threw the bumps of dime in your prime. Then you...
King Kong has a lot of shit on them. Like a lot, especially Goes. Here are Gorgeous George and Goes.
All right, we're back, and we're coming down the home stretch of a Monday edition of MMA Junkie Radio. Just to kind of give you a look into the crystal ball, this week's going to be fun. Dan will be back tomorrow. We'll have him co-host. I think Tom will also join us in studio. Sean Merriman, former NFL defensive lineman, he'll be on our show on Wednesday, as will Gaston Bolanos, who made his debut in MMA, but comes from the Muay Thai background, and he'll be fighting for Bellator kickboxing in about a week or so. So we'll talk to him about that. He's had a big year so far. CJ Hamilton's going to be headlining an upcoming LFA card, so he'll be a guest of ours on Thursday. Gegard Mousasi will be a guest of ours on Friday, and of course we'll just keep adding to the names. Daniel Weichel will join us the following Monday, so lots to look forward to here on the MMA Junkie Radio Show. Jake Ellenberger will also be joining us at some point. Just gotta figure out what day.
I just sent him a nasty text right now.
Did you?
I have a text that I send people when I'm upset with them, fighters. And if he doesn't respond to this, it's dead to me.
Dead to you?
Yeah. This is where I draw the line. When I send the panda slamming his hand into flour, you're in trouble.
What does that mean? That means
you better get me an answer right now.
I got you. All right, well, while we wait for Tito Ortiz to call in, couple reminders here of the social media that accompanies the radio show. So we'll start off with Goes. Goes can be followed on Instagram and Twitter at The Goes. I'm at MMA Junkie George, and Dan can be followed at Dan Stupp. Dan with 2 N's, Stupp with 2 P's. Dan, that's the same for Instagram as well, right?
Yep, that's a private one. That's more non-MMA stuff.
So you'd rather have people not follow you then?
No, if
they can go fuck off.
If you're into pictures of my dog and hiking trails and lakes and stuff like that, but if you're an MMA fan looking for MMA content, you're going to be really disappointed.
What's the new dog that comes with you guys on the walks? What's his name again? Brinks, that's right.
Yeah, good dog.
Yeah. Are you going to just basically take custody ever, you think, of Brinks?
I can't. It would be illegal. Like, we checked with the local authorities. Like, that guy, even though he doesn't live at the house, he's allowed to lock the dog up there.
Damn. All right.
So we just do our best to make him happy.
Let's talk to Tito Ortiz. He's joining us now on the hotline. What's going on, Tito Ortiz?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks for joining us again on MMA Junkie Radio. You know, we had a long interview with you about a month ago after you defeated Chael Sonnen, so we'll keep this one a little short. But there was some things out there that I wanted to just kind of, catch up on you with. For one, congratulations on that Lifetime Achievement Award at the World MMA Awards a few weeks ago. I thought you were the right person. You know, this was your year, you retiring and all. And so, first of all, tell us about that night and what that award meant to you.
You know, that night, I was very thankful just for the respect I get from the MMA community. I've been in this game for over 20 years. I was able to walk away now and on my own terms, the way I wanted to do it, and have my hand raised. And, all the hard work and dedication I put in through my career, through all the injuries I've been through, I could have quit a long time ago. But through the perseverance, hard work, and determination, I never stopped. I kept going, and I wanted to just leave on my own terms and do things the way I wanted to do them, and I did it. And having that Lifetime Achievement Award just shows the hard work and determination that any person can put in, just as long as you just keep your mind strong, keep your dreams going, and never stop achieving those goals.
You were one of the few people that got to fight with shoes in a cage. That's how long ago you were doing it. You also did it for free. I can't believe I actually seen all 20 years of your career. So for you to get that award, I was very happy for you, and it was very well deserved. You did a lot for the sport.
Thank you, man. And it really just goes back to the MMA community. All the fans have been there since my first fight, May 30th, 1997. And it had my back no matter what. Through the ups and downs, there's the valleys and the peaks. It was tough, but at the same time, that's what made me the fighter I am today.
Tito, so again, we'll do a quick one here, but I just want to get some rapid fire from you just to clear some things up. With Cyborg relinquishing her title out in Invicta, and I know you had advised her at the end of last year to take that fight at UFC 208 for the inaugural featherweight title. What I wanted to know is, what is your relationship with Cyborg at this point? Are you in any capacity affiliated with her?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing the behind-the-scene management stuff. She's making a lot of decisions on her own, of course. Kind of makes me scratch my head a few times, but doing all the wrestling stuff, rather a wrestling coach pretty much. She's putting in the work. She's doing the things. It's just sometimes there's a communication issue we have during some of the times, but we're trying to get her a fighting for 145-pound world title with the UFC. So yes, I still do work with her. Primetime 360 is a part of the company that I own, and we still manage her. But like I say, she does want to make her own decisions on some of the things she does, and it does make me scratch my head. But you really can't make a girl do something that she doesn't want to do unless she doesn't want to do it.
I like the idea of her fighting in Anaheim at UFC 214 versus Durandamy. Is there an update on that? Do you think that one will come to fruition?
To this point, there's no update at all. I know she went to Abu Dhabi to go do some appearance for some other fight organization, and strictly go do is to meet fans and maybe a little extra side money, of course. But as of now, she's just training.
Mm-hmm. Also, can you tell us about it seemed like when you left Bellator, there was a door open for you to have some sort of a role. Have they updated you on that as sort of an advisor, or in any capacity will you work with Bellator?
Not yet. They gave me a call to come on here to talk to you guys about the fight that's coming up, of course, in June with Chael Sonnen and Vanderlei Silva and Theodore and Mitrione. And I said, sure, I'll do it. I'm a team player, man. Him is a part of the team, and if they wanted to do some extra work, I'm here to do it. But of course, I got to pay the bills. I did the signing up in San Jose last time they were up there, so it's not really a demanding call from them for me. But whenever they want me to do things, I'm always willing there to work with them.
You fought both guys, and you beat both guys. There were different
parts. Which is okay, because I've been doing some other work, and I've been making some really good money, and I think I found a new career of getting into acting. So I had an opportunity to work with Tyler Perry, who does Medea, who did Medea Boo last year. They're doing Medea Boo 2 that we just wrapped on Thursday, and I got one of the biggest parts that I've ever done in any film, a good speaking role. And I'm a father with a daughter. He's a father with a daughter, Brian, which is one of his characters. And it's a really good story, a good film that we ended up shooting. So that's something that interests me. And he's all, you got a future in this, man. You're a natural. So I guess all the hard work of all the acting classes I've been doing the last year and a half been paying off.
That's cool. You have any other projects other than that one? You said some other money-making opportunities?
As of right now, I just kind of in the works with something. I can't really tell what it is. But I was at dinner with Sylvester Stallone, 50 Cent, and Randall Emmett, and Mark Canton, of course, the producer from 300. So maybe some stuff in the future coming up here. I just can't really say what it is until it gets done, because I don't want to really count my chickens before they hatch.
Damn, some baller names right there. Good job. Yeah. I did want to ask you about Chael versus...
No, I sat back and I was really, really surprised. I was at dinner, I'm like looking across, and Stallone comes up to me. He's like, congratulations on your last fight. I watched it. It was amazing. Anyway, I can get a picture with you. I was like, this is Sylvester Stallone asking me this. It was surreal, but it was cool. But this year's 2017 is going to be my year, not just in fighting and retiring, but I think future of my next career. And I'm happy, man. Things are doing really, really good with the hard work I've been putting in.
Very cool. So let's talk about Chael versus Vanderlei. You fought both guys, completely different parts of your career. Vanderlei in the early part, and Chael, was your last fight. Who do you think takes this fight down?
I think it just really comes down. I hope Vanderlei knocks him out. I think that'll happen. I think Chael will try to go for the takedown. Vanderlei defend the takedown, and Vanderlei's going to put some hands on him. I hope that's the way it happens. I like Vanderlei a lot. I just like Chael. So I really think that Vanderlei gets knocked out.
Mm-hmm. So the animosity towards Chael is still carried over from what's happened fight night, or has there been subsequent comments from him that have, that you're not feeling?
No, you know what? I haven't really been paying attention. It was from fight night. He came to my dressing room and he goes, "Are we cool?" I go, "Yeah, we're cool. Unless you can go out in public and apologize to me like you went out in public and disrespect me. If you can't do that, then we're not cool until that opportunity comes about." And then after the press conference, right before it was over, I looked over at him. I go, "Chael, is that all you have to say?" And he goes, "Happy birthday."
Yeah.
And then I go, "Really? Yeah, that's all you have to say?" And he said, "Yep." He walked away, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I'm a man, and he shows that he's a mouse, and like I said, I'll leave it at that.
I'm going to do a soft exit right now because I do have a couple more questions, folks. That was the MMA Junkie Radio Show with Tito Ortiz, and we are going to continue in about 10 seconds. Just got a couple more questions. All right, here we go. So a little bit of overtime with former UFC light heavyweight champion Tito Ortiz, also a member of their Hall of Fame, and he just recently retired at Bellator MMA with a win over Chael Sonnen. How about Matt Mitrione versus Fedor Emelianenko? And you know what's funny, Tito, is there's always an angle with you, man, with some of these guys. Like with Fedor, it doesn't appear that there's ever been anything, but I remember you and Mitrione had some words back in the day. But anyway, I'm sure you'll be a little bit objective here. Who do you like in that fight? That's another one of the great matchups that Bellator's got for the 180 card out in Madison Square Garden in June.
I like Mitrione in this one, man.
Okay.
I like Mitrione in this one. And you know what? I'd have to say I respect Mitrione because we had our words, and it wasn't publicly words. We had words face to face, and we were almost going to fight each other, street style, and with no, not in the cage at all. We had our words against each other, and he realized he made a bad decision of some things he said towards me. A couple months later, after one of his fights, he came over to me and he apologized to me. He said, "You know what? I was in the wrong. I shouldn't have said what I said, and I apologize for that." And I'm very, very respectful towards him for doing something like that. It takes a big man to do that. He did that, and we kind of crushed it, pushed it behind us, and it goes all the way back to going to England. When he fought in England, he knocked out. I'm not sure the guy's name who he knocked out when he fought in England for Bellator.
Ollie Thompson.
But yes, there you go, Loon Thompson. And I kind of put his son under my wing, kind of watched over him as in the press conference, and I think he took that. And me and Mitrione, we're in a good place with each other, so I would like to see him win. I know he had a little problem with his appendix his last time, getting him taken out, or
kidney stones.
What was it? It
was kidney
stone.
Yeah.
Man, don't drink cranberry juice. That stuff happens. I've never had that. That's one of the ones I've never had. So this time this fight's on, and they get to be at Madison Square Gardens in New York, and it's amazing. It's a great opportunity for all four of these fighters to fight in a great place at Madison Square Gardens.
Tito, I know you were retired, but we heard behind the scenes that you almost unretired to fill in for Matt Mitrione against Tito. Is there any truth to that?
There was some truth to that. I looked over at Scott Coker. It was probably about 2 hours before the fight, and he said, "You know what? If you would have told me 3 hours ago, we would be working on it." But there was some truth to that, and I said, "The hell with it." I was in fight shape at that time. It was only like 3 weeks after my fight, and I was still in fight shape. And if they needed me at that time, I go, "This is one time I'd do it." And they just sat and thought about it for a good, hour and a half, and they said, "No, we can't do that quick." And I said, "All right, well, there's a one-time chance, and that's it." And I moved on. And since then, it's nice to not to be training. People don't understand how hard we train and how much time we put into it. We're doing 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. 4 days on Tuesday, Thursdays, 2 days on Saturdays. To go maybe twice a week now is great. It's wonderful. It's I don't know. It's just it's so much relaxation away from the physical work. My brain's able to chill and relax, and study more scripts and use my brains and not my brawns. I'm very, very thankful. I have such a big head now. I can use the brains that are in it.
With 2 hours to go, who would have even cornered you? And were the flame shorts anywhere around, or would you have just run to a local sporting goods store and thrown on anything?
I've been all in Bellator. I came all in Bellator shorts. I came out, I would have had to have one of my partners go buy me a Mexican-American flag. I would have been a new flag and everything. The hell with it. Why not give it a try? I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You fight someone like Theodore, who is a legend himself. I would have had nothing to lose. I would have made some really good money out the deal. But Scott Coker and Bellator thought different, and they didn't want to do it, and it was fine. The night went on, and now we are here, looking forward to Madison Square Gardens with them making it happen.
All right, Goes, do you have any questions for Tito Ortiz before we let him go?
Yeah, Tito. One thing popped up in the news where Rampage Jackson was talking about if he could do it all over again, he may not do MMA. He somewhat regrets doing the sport. I know you've had a great career, but at any time, did those thoughts ever go through your head? Maybe through your lowest moment in mixed martial arts?
Never.
Did you ever? Never?
Never. Mixed martial arts is what made me the man I am today. Everything that I went through in my life made me the man I am today. Wrestling, fighting, my children, relationships I was in, relationships with Dana White, relationships with Bellator, all the mistakes I've made, I wouldn't take back any of them. Probably the only one I would take back is don't wear a T-shirt that says Dana my bitch. That's probably the only one I would take back. But everything else, I did my way. I learned a lot from it. It made me the man I am today. I worked really, really hard. I've showed a lot of people what hard work and dedication can achieve. I could have quit when I had my first ACL replacement, but I didn't. I went on with my career, ended up having over 8 surgeries, over 20 concussions, but I still got my head on my shoulders, and now I can go on to another career, and I'm very, very excited to do that.
Tito, you retired from the sport, but you're still going to be a person that people are going to look to for answers on some of the issues in mixed martial arts. One of those issues came up on our show today, weight cutting, and we all hurled around and we all threw a bunch of suggestions, but yourself being a former fighter, doing this almost your entire life, how would you attack the problem of weight cutting?
Well, I think a lot of the guys who do cut weight don't come from a wrestler background. You got to come from a wrestling background to understand weight cutting, and it is a scientific idea of doing it the right way compared to going, I'm going to cut a bunch of weight a day before the fight. I'm going to fight and feel okay. That's not going to happen. You got to take the 4 days. Prior to that, you got to take the 14 weeks of eating right, eating the right things. Don't overeat. Eat the right food portions. Eat the portion that's going to give you energy, and not just eat to put food in your stomach. Not drinking sodas, not eating fast food. Making it a full-time job. You want to be a professional athlete, you got to be like a professional athlete, and that's what it really comes down to, is doing it the right way, not cutting too much weight. When each person's body size are different, their metabolisms are different. Figure out ways to speed up your metabolism so you're able to eat a little bit more food, or eat a little bit more little food, but throughout the day with smaller meals. I know a lot of people hire their dietitians or their people who make their diets up and so forth. But I was able to learn to do that really, really early because of wrestling. I wrestled in high school, wrestled in college. When I got to college, I figured it out. And throughout my MMA career, I kind of figured it out after about 3-4 years when they made a 205 weight pound for me. It was 199. It was so hard to make that weight. Joe Silva and Dana Lorenzo and all them asked me what would be the perfect weight for me. I said 205. And ever since 205 was made, I was the champ. And I never missed a weight. I always made weight. A couple times it was super hard. Like when I fought Minotauro in Toronto, I cut 34 pounds in 2 days. And I don't advise that for any fighter at all. I let my weight get out of, just out of control. Everything at home was horrible. Just the things I was going through with my ex-girlfriend was horrible. And I wasn't really committed to fighting at the time. But if you're going to be a professional fighter, you got to be committed 100%. You got to make sure your diet's on point. You can't cheat and go have ice cream and drink sodas and have fast food. Yeah, that stuff's fun to have, but do that stuff on a Sunday, or do that stuff when your fight's over. But prior to that, you got to make sure your weight cut's on point and doing it the right way. And there's some little pointers that you can do to make it happen really, really easy. I mean, as for me, before I fought Chael Sonnen, I cut 19 pounds in 3 days, and I ate dinner every single night. It was really, really easy. I didn't have any problems at all. I felt great at the weigh-in. I never felt weak, and I don't know how much weight Chael was cutting, if it was cutting any weight at all, because it didn't feel like it. When I grabbed a hold of him, he felt like a girl. But it was just one of those things that you got to cut weight the right way. You can't cut weight out of shape. It makes it a lot harder. And I figured that out, like I said, when I fought Nogueira. I wasn't in fight shape, and it was hard for me to make the weight. But if you're in great cardio shape, making the weight should not be a problem at all.
All right, we'll end with this, Tito, and thanks again for your time as always. We're in Vegas, so this is a gambling town, and we're filling out our parlay here. And we wrote down Vanderlei. So obviously we're going to have to wait a little bit on the parlay because that one's not till June. But we have Mitrione and Fedor. So I got Vanderlei and Mitrione. I need to add a third name. So Rampage and King Mo. Who wins that one? We'll call it Tito Ortiz's parlay. Bellator parlay.
Parlay, Rampage all day.
Rampage all day. All right. Rampage, Mitrione, and Vanderlei. All right, cool. So we'll give you your cut when you come to town.
And you know what? That is a good parlay, too. You put that parlay together in Vegas, you'll make a lot of money. I think those are all the dogs on there, and I think you'll make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. All day, though. Is there animosity, a little animosity there towards King Mo, or you really feel Rampage is just that much better?
No, not at all. I know both fighters. I know how Rampage is. And when Rampage fights someone who he dislikes, I know he dislikes King Mo, I know he'll fight him in his A game. That's just the way Rampage is. And Rampage is my boy, of course. He's someone who's been my friend since the very, very beginning of his MMA career, of my career, of his career. We were training partners. We were team punishment, and he's done great with everything he's done in and out of the cage. And I just think he's a better fighter. I have no animosity towards King Mo at all. Zero. This is just the way I see the fight going down.
That's what's up. Thanks for the time as always. We appreciate it and hope to talk to you soon.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, man. You guys have a great day.
All right, you too. We'll see you. All right. Thanks to Danny for setting that up. Danny from Bellator for setting that up with Tito Ortiz. And Victoria, thank you for staying a bit late for us to make that happen and get our final questions with him. So hopefully you all enjoyed today's show with Stand Up, a.k.a. Dan Stupp, our co-founder for MMA Junkie. He'll be back tomorrow. And Tito Ortiz, who is a former UFC light heavyweight champ, also a UFC Hall of Famer, and just recently retired by beating Chael Sonnen at a recent Bellator card. I think it was Bellator 170 out in Los Angeles. So big year for him. He also got the Lifetime Achievement Award. Anyway, folks, we are out of here. Go out there and be champions. We'll see you tomorrow.